Introduction to stress. The famous cartoon cat Garfield says, in a perfect world, you'd love your job and it would love you back. You'd work 2 weeks and vacation 50. You'd always be first in line. Sleeping would be an Olympic event. Everyone in your graduating class would age except you. TV would actually make you smart. Everything would be remote control. Mornings would start later in the day. And the cartoon strip ends with, "This is not a perfect world. Quit dreaming and get back to work." We definitely don't live in a perfect world, and things don't always go the way we'd like them to. It's been said that as we grow up, we learn that even the one person that wasn't supposed to ever let you down probably will. You'll have your heart broken probably more than once, and it's harder every time. You'll fight with your best friend. You'll cry because time is passing too fast, and you'll eventually lose someone you love. So take too many pictures, laugh too much, and love like you've never been hurt, because every 60 seconds that you spend upset is a minute of happiness you'll never get back. This is not to say that you should never get upset, which is impossible anyway, and it's good to experience some negative emotions so that you can appreciate the positive emotions. But I think it's good to get in the habit to take a step back whenever you're about to get upset, angry, frustrated, irritated, etc., and evaluate whether or not the situation truly warrants a stressful reaction. I certainly don't want to be pessimistic, but the fact of the matter is that literally every day from the day that you were born until the day that you die, you'll most likely experience some form of stress to some extent. The types of stressors may vary throughout your life. Much of your stress as a college student may pertain to schoolwork and finances, and much of your stress as an elderly person might be dealing with the loss of your spouse or dealing with health problems. Regardless of the type of stressors that you come across, you will encounter a variety of them to varying degrees throughout your entire life. Not only will the type of stressors you encounter vary throughout your life, but the amount of stressors and the intensity of those stressors will vary as well. You might experience a when it rains it pours period where tons of things go wrong all at about the same time. Life can be stressful. It doesn't matter where you live, how much money you make, how intelligent you are. Everyone will deal with bumps in the road of life. Some might have more bumps or steeper bumps than others, but one thing is for sure, you can count on those bumps being there. Some bumps in the road might be self-induced or stress you created yourself, and other bumps were just there or stress that is completely out of your control. Regardless, you will encounter stressors to varying extents all throughout your life. Yet how many of us have received some type of training or education as to how to deal effectively with stressors and the accompanying stressful emotions? We're taught how to read and write, but what about how to deal with rejection and devastation? We're taught how to ride a bike, but what about how to deal with despair and depression? We're taught how to drive a car, but what about how to deal with anger and frustration? Unfortunately, many people have not been taught how to deal effectively with stress, as evidenced by some very sobering statistics. For example, did you know that up to 90% of all disease and illness is related to stress, meaning that stress exacerbates or precipitates the condition? Several statistics indicate that stress, or the inability to effectively handle it, is a serious problem among Americans and college students. In one nationwide survey, 3/4 of Americans reported that they experienced symptoms related to stress in any given month. Just over half of Americans said that stress caused them to fight with people close to them. Similarly, 1/4 of Americans report that they have been alienated from a family member because of stress. Half of Americans feel their stress has increased over the past 5 years. Half of Americans feel that stress has a negative impact on their personal and professional lives. Half of Americans report lying awake at night due to stress. 1/3 of Americans feel that they're living with extreme stress. Specifically pertaining to college students, did you know that GPA has been strongly correlated with stress? The more stressors students experience, the lower their GPA. 1 in 10 students report thoughts of suicide, which is no surprise because the second leading cause of death among college students is suicide. In one survey, 1 out of 4 students report experiencing daily stress. In 2010, males and females' perceptions of their own emotional health hit the lowest marks in 25 years. 39% of those ages 18 to 33, people in this age group are called the millennial generation, say their stress has increased in the past year. 52% say stress has kept them awake at night in the past month. And more than any other age group, those ages 18 to 33 are diagnosed by a healthcare provider with either depression or an anxiety disorder. An ambulance down in the valley. So once upon a time, there was this perfect little village with perfect little people. It was a happy, perfect little village, but they had one problem. Whenever the people would walk to town in the valley, they had to walk around a cliff. Many people would fall while trying to walk around this cliff. So they held a town council meeting where they decided to place an ambulance down in the valley. Their justification was that it wasn't the falling that hurt, it was down below when they stopped falling. So that's why they needed to have the solution of an ambulance down in the valley. Finally, one guy raised his hand and said, "Why don't we simply build a fence up on the cliff so people don't fall?" They all looked at him and thought he was crazy, so they went with the ambulance down in the valley. Unfortunately, believe it or not, this is a true story because this is exactly what's happening in the United States today. Approximately 97% of all healthcare costs in the U.S. goes toward the ambulance instead of the fence, towards treatment instead of prevention. Eating right and exercising definitely are huge components of that fence or preventing disease and illness, but learning to manage stress has been shown to be just as important contributors to our health as eating right and exercising. Managing stress affects both our physical health and our emotional well-being. Countless studies clearly document this. Waiting to do something about your stressors until you're completely overwhelmed or burned out and about to lose it, or worse, waiting until you've already lost it, is like putting an ambulance down in the valley instead of building the fence. This course is about building that fence, not placing an ambulance down in the valley. In other words, it's about learning how to effectively deal with stress before experiencing significant physical, emotional, behavioral, and performance consequences of stress. The supplemental video for this lecture is called "What is Stress?" and gets into a little bit about the physiology of stress, which we'll talk about later, but it's a good introductory video and is just over about 4.5 minutes. Key points. This is definitely not a perfect world. Because we're all going to encounter stress all throughout our life, we all need to learn how to effectively handle stress. Specific stressors will vary throughout your life. Regardless, you'll most likely experience stress all throughout your life. Several statistics indicate that stress, or the inability to effectively handle it, is a serious problem among college students. Learning to effectively manage stress is an extremely important component of preventative efforts to maintain health and wellness, and that